Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online Fresh Squeezed 7 gallery talk with three of our currently exhibiting artists. Thank you all for spending some time with us tonight. We appreciate you being here with us. And thank you to the three artists who we'll be hearing from in a little bit. Um, First, so you can stop looking at me. I'm going to share my screen. Before we go to the three artists who'll be speaking tonight, um, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Morian Art Center and the Fresh Squeezed, the history of the Fresh Squeezed um, project. Can you all see my screen? Okay. All right. These are the three artists or the work by them that you'll be hearing from: Deborah Perlman, KJ Skidmore, and Laura de Valencia. This is the Morian Art Center. We're located in beautiful downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. If you haven't been here before, I highly encourage you to visit. We are over 100 years old. We're one of the oldest community art centers in the Southeast US. And this building that you're looking at right now is what we call the mothership. This is located downtown on Central Avenue. And I say this because we have a couple of different locations. This is the Morian Art Center where the Fresh Squeezed exhibition is currently on display. And across the street from the Morian, we have the Chihuly collection, which is a wonderful collection of world-renowned glass artist Dale Chihuly's installations. And then behind this building that you're looking at right now is the Morian Glass Studio, where you can see live glass blowing demonstrations 7 days a week. And last but not least, about a mile away from this building near Tropicana Field, where the Rays play, go Rays, is the Morian Center for Clay, which is the largest working pottery in the Southeast. So the Morian is a pretty big institution. We have a lot of different locations, a lot of moving parts, but our basic mission is to connect people with art. And this is where I should say I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Amanda Cooper, and I'm the chief curator for the Morian Art Center. And one of my favorite ways of connecting people with art is to put on exhibitions like Fresh Squeezed, where we can feature emerging artists in our gallery. So Fresh Squeezed, this is the 7th year we have been putting on this exhibition. We started in 2017 when the Morian was turning 100 years old. So it was a new project that we wanted to start. And the current exhibition is on view through June 22nd. So if you are in the St. Pete area, please come by and see the work yourself in person. How it works. Fresh Squeezed is a juried show, meaning artists apply. We get about 120 to 150 applicants for this show every year, and it's open to any artist living in Florida. And the only criteria that we have to define an emerging artist is you have to be an artist who has never had a solo show in the state of Florida. So from that pool of 120 to 150 artists, my coworkers and I have the task of narrowing it down to 6 artists per year, which is a really hard thing to do. But it's a really fun thing to do too, to see all the amazing artwork being made in our state. So in 7 years of doing this exhibition, we have shown artwork from 42 artists from 19 Florida cities. It's truly a statewide show. Everywhere, artists from Miami to Jacksonville to Pensacola and every place in between. So it's truly a statewide show. And if you're an artist that's watching this and interested in applying, Fresh Squeezed 8 will open in March 2024. And the application for that will be on our website, usually starting in the summer, and the deadline is in November. So real quickly, I just want to show a few slides from past years. This was the inaugural Fresh Squeezed exhibition in 2017. This is Brian Feldman, who took the title of the exhibition literally and squeezed orange juice in the gallery. This is Katrina Sarah, an artist from Fresh Squeezed 2. Again, every year we select 6 artists for the exhibition. I'm just showing you one from each one. Otherwise, we'd be here all night. This is Fresh Squeezed 3, Tanae Hart, who is a professor at FSU. She lives in Tallahassee. This is Fresh Squeezed 4, Lusa Molnar, who's a professor at Stetson and DeLand. This show opened, the reception was right before everything shut down during COVID. It was an interesting time. Fresh Squeezed 5, this is Bridget Couvert, an artist from Palm Harbor, Florida, does resin sculptures. And this was last year's exhibition, one of the artists, Eugene Aguier, who was working on his master's degree at UF when we showed his work. We'd love to say thank you to our sponsors. The Morian is a nonprofit, and we can't put on the programs that we put on without our sponsors, Lisa and Perry Everett, our terrific community friends. Also DFCU Financial and Smith and Associates, our wonderful sponsors. And the Gobioff Foundation has been with us from the beginning. They're our founding sponsors. And again, if there's an artist that happens to be on here, the Gobioff Foundation does micro grants for artists. And you can just Google them and go to their website. They do 4 cycles a year. So if you're an artist that has a project you're working on, you might want to look them up. They're very generous with their grants. So now is when I'm going to stop talking and let the artists speak. Again, first we're going to hear from Deborah Perlman. And then we're going to hear from KJ Skidmore. And last but not least, we'll hear from Laura de Valencia. And we're going to hear from them all in a row. And then afterwards, once all 3 artists have spoken, we will take questions. So at the end, if you want to type your questions in the chat, we will address as many of them as we can at the end. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Deborah, are you ready? And you are muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda. I'm Deborah Perlman, and I create abstract wall-mounted sculpture. The spaces and forms in my work land somewhere between real and imagined, sliding in and out of reality. I want my work to stir the senses, spark ideas and images and memories, and inspire the viewer to ask questions. Ask, what is it? Where is it? What do I see and feel? And do I find myself in it or not? I use a variety of materials, as you can see here on the slide. And I use paper, I use photographs, I use metal and wood and plastic and wire mesh. And I've been influenced by African art, the art movements of Cubism, the constructivism and geometric abstraction, many individual artists as well, including Louise Nevelson, the illogical perspective of Giorgio de Chirico and M.C. Escher, the shadow boxes of Joseph Cornell, and the metal reliefs of Joseph Stella, to name just a few. And my inspiration really comes from many places, from nature, of course, from architecture, from personal life experiences, as well as what's happening in the world. I try to keep my spirit and my eyes and my feelings free and open. And most of all, I try to honor my voice. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and I went to Boston University for undergraduate and received my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree there with a focus in sculpture. You can see I had started going toward the abstract there very soon after I went to school. And I then went to Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and received my Master of Fine Arts degree in sculpture. And these are some of the works that I did there. When I finished my master's degree, I decided to leave the art studio. There were two reasons for that. One was that at the age of mid-20s, I felt that I had always been focused on art, and I was curious about what was going on in the rest of the world. The second reason was that I had this voice in my head. The voice was really the voice of my parents saying, "What are you going to do to make a living?" So for those two reasons, I went out into the corporate world. And I was very, very fortunate. I had many different jobs, not many, but a few different jobs during that time. One spanned 16 years, and I was involved. I worked for an international hotel company and had the privilege of traveling all around the world. It was a wonderful experience. Creativity came along the way in this corporate world journey, and I did many, many creative things in these jobs. When I wasn't working, I was drawing, I was making collage, I was taking photographs. And at the time that I had saved enough money and could afford to leave these jobs, I did, and went back to making art full time. And here you're going to see the work that is in the show. This piece is called Somewhere Between. This piece is made quite a bit of upcycled materials, cardboard, many different types of paper. You can see here some of the paper. I did a mock-up in cardboard, as you can see here, and then a color study of the work, and this is the finished piece. And here you see Somewhere Between, number 2. This piece actually was inspired by a very quick sketch in my sketchbook. It probably took 2 minutes to make this sketch, but I really loved the energy in this sketch and decided to move forward with it. I made a mock-up to understand the spatial dynamics that I wanted in the sketch. And here is a color study of the piece. And here's the finished piece. What I love about this piece is this yellow doorway. I keep asking myself when I look at this piece, where does this doorway lead me? And the mystery of that intrigues me very much. This piece is called Secret Woods. This was inspired by a photo I took at the Secret Woods Nature Center in Dania Beach, Florida, very close to my home. I loved this walkway and the fact that these branches were hovering over this walkway and sort of created a canopy effect, very sculptural to me. And I went home and created a very quick sketch of it. Here's a color study and a kind of a sculptural format that I wanted for the piece. And here is the finished piece. You can see it from the side and a little detail of it. This next piece is called Another Dimension. This piece was inspired from an early morning walk through my neighborhood. And I looked up one day and saw the rooftops of the homes in my neighborhood. And for some reason, I know I've seen these a million times, but when I looked at them that day, I saw these incredible angles and spaces and just amazing lines, and I just went crazy. Took a lot of pictures of these spaces, and then did a lot of drawings and came up with this sketch that I liked a lot, and created a mock-up again to get a sense of the spatial dynamics. And this is the finished piece. I inserted this photograph right in the middle here, again, sort of going further into the space and getting a sense of mystery again. In this series, this is a series of 5 pieces, and you can see at the top here, I said spiritual seeking. This series was really a time that I was looking for healing and peace. The world seemed to explode with war and death and hatred and divisiveness, and it really affected me. I felt that I needed to look inside, look outside. I did a lot of studying of Judeo-Christian liturgy, as well as looking at photos of houses of prayer. You can see here some of the photos at the bottom here that really inspired me, and I loved the spatial dynamics of these photos. The first three pieces in this series were of altar spaces. And so you can see the sketches as well as the mock-ups, a color study, and this resulted in these three pieces of altar spaces. The fourth piece in this series is called Shelter Ut. It was taken from, the title was taken from a Jewish prayer. And I love this piece. It was actually inspired sculpturally from a Frank Gehry building in Chicago. This is a sketch from that I interpreted from this space, a color study, and this is the final piece. What I love about this piece is I feel like I'm walking toward the light, toward peace, and toward hope. And the final piece in this series is called Sanctuary. And Sanctuary is intended to draw the viewer towards multiple doors and spaces that they would need to navigate before they reach a spiritual center. It is definitely an analogy of life, and I really felt the draw into an inner sanctum in this space. Here is the sketch that I did. Again, the mock-up and the piece in progress. This next series is called Within, and here I was very intrigued by wire mesh. The first time I worked with it, I loved it. I was really intrigued by the fact that in one way, it looked to me like a space that was confined and restricted when I used it. But then in another way, it was looking to me like creating a space that was uh, creating safety and protection. So I questioned that every time I made one of these pieces. The first piece, all of these spaces were closed and covered. The second piece, just the centerpiece, was covered by wire mesh, and the third piece was quite open. And so I was going back and forth with asking that question and hoping that the viewer would also ask the question, is it confined and restricted, or do I feel sheltered? Do I feel protected? And the next series is called Nature Texture, obviously a play on words. I was responding to climate change in this series, and I was really presenting the dilemma in terms of, will we be able to live in harmony with that which is man-made and the natural world? I started out with this first piece, a lot of man-made structures here, or so-called structures, architectural-like spaces, and three little photos of the natural world. The second piece evolved, also inspired by architecture, an architectural space, and I kept I thought that just this little space was going to have plants in it, but plants kept telling me to put them in more places. Believe me, the piece was telling me what to do. And then the last three pieces in this series, the plants were screaming. They really were. And they were telling me that they were vital, that they were growing, and that they were present. And that the question really ended up with, will we be able to protect the life we know now, or will climate change force us to live in a new reality? And I'm going to leave you tonight with two pieces that are not in the show that I have recently made. The first is called Migrant. And Migrant really is a depiction of the thousands of migrants that are journeying through from their homes to find a safer and better place to live. And they face danger, they face human rights violations, they face untenable conditions as they journey through, and they have, many uh, obstacles as they go along. And these are the obstacles that they face. And yet they still have hope, and they still hope to have a better life. And this final piece is called restricted. And basically, that's my response to legislation targeting groups of our population and diminishing their basic rights. And I really wonder, these people are in silhouette, as you can see in this piece. And I wonder, is that how they're seen by the people that are closing the door on their basic rights? And this space is suppressed and leaves no room for the empathy and the acceptance that I used to know in the world. I'm going to leave you with something positive, believe me. So here's the positive, is a quote from the artist Keith Haring, which says, "Art should be something that liberates your soul, provokes the imagination, and encourages people to go further." Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Deborah. I always learn things from these talks, even if I think I know it all. Love seeing the evolution of your work too. I have a question, but I'm going to follow my own instructions and wait until the end. Next, thank you, Deborah. Next, we're going to hear from KJ Skidmore from Tampa.
Hi, I'm sharing my screen from beginning. Oh, that's not where it's supposed to start.
Too soon.
Too soon. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Good evening. My name's KJ. And before getting started, I just want to thank the Morian and Amanda and everyone working at the Morian for having me in the show. It looks amazing, and everyone's work looks amazing. And I'm sad that it's going to be over soon, but thank you for having me. Yes, hello. This is me. I'm KJ. Hi. These are some photos of me with my little stuffed pets that I love and that I'm proud of. But anyway, I'm from Gainesville, Florida, and I finished my last 2 years of school at the University of Florida in 2019, and I got my BFA in drawing. Otherwise, I've spent the past 10 years living in various places out west, working on public lands, doing trail maintenance, using chainsaws, and living in the woods and that kind of stuff. But now I'm back in Florida. I'm at the University of South Florida in Tampa, and I just finished my first year of 3 at the MFA program here, and I love it. I love being back in school. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about a lot of my work from the past a little over a year and a half. I made this series at the end of 2021. And so it's pretty recent work, but it has changed a lot in a pretty short period of time. This series is called Burger Time, and it's in Fresh Squeezed right now. So you can go see it until June 22nd. But in this series of paintings, I was thinking about some traditionally feminine industry work like waitressing, and then you'll see in the other paintings like references to the sex industry, and I'm humorously addressing the visual consumption by men of feminine bodies in this work. So basically like the male gaze. And so this voyeurism towards feminine bodies has been really normalized in our culture. So I'm comparing this this normalization to like attending this cheesy, dated family theme restaurant that's kind of fictional, kind of not. You'll see like just taking your family there to basically, it's almost as normal as just like going to the strip club. So it's kind of funny, but that's my comparison. This normalization of the male gaze, and that is something that really bothers me because it's an uneven distribution of power, known as the male gaze. You probably know what that means, which it's a term in psychoanalysis coined by Laura Mulvey in the early 1970s. So that's my smart theory reference tonight. But that's what I was thinking of with between the interactions of these characters in this narrative of this series. And what do you know here? I have photos of the real Burger Time, and it's beautiful. When I go to work out west, I take a lot of photos of abandoned buildings and like burnt down motels, and I was drawing them a lot, but this one I used for this series. And then these are stage photographs I took for the figure in the work, and this is Kyla, my wonderful model. So yeah, I use photos that I print out and then paint from as reference. And then you could see I did this weird visual cleansing thing just with the eye drops, kind of in reference to the gaze, but it's also just kind of freaky, and I liked that. And so finally in this series, I used a very representational, more academic painting of this female character alongside these cartoon characters, and they're meant to exist in the same space on like a spectrum of reality. That looking back at it, I think I was just comparing this like confusion of what is real and not on this spectrum of reality to like this female experience of being an object of like voyeurism in everyday life. So that's that. So now I'll be showing some works from my first semester at USF that have some very similar concepts going on, but I kind of amped up the weirdness even more, I think. And for this narrative, it's like a kind of bizarre, like surreal, disjointed narrative. It takes place in more of a motel, as you'll see. And then these little guys, these little Ren and Stimpy characters have been nicknamed Little Pervs by a fellow student, which is the perfect nickname because they're a lot more bold and excessive in this like pleasure seeking in this series, as you can see. And then here's some more paintings that I have from last semester in Fresh Squeezed with the reoccurring like motel room pattern from the 60s that I saw in a movie. And here's that painting again. It's not a great photo, but I wanted to just talk about the weird squirt bottle thing in these. So basically it's a parody of the constant fetishization of pretty much anything that women and femme people do in our culture. And I think it's pretty constant that anything that, feminine people do can be fetishized and used to control their body. And I'm just making fun of that with these little guys getting all excited about a squirt bottle. On the left, you can see a photo reference that I printed out, and then I draw a bunch of reference lines and just paint it over and over again until I get that. And then on the right, it's not a great photo, but just some drawings and sketches just showing that a lot of my paintings are informed by drawing. So I was really hell bent on making an installation last semester. And so I did, based on a motel room, a dirty, nasty motel room. And so that's what I did. I'm really more interested in like paintings you can walk into, or more immersive paintings. So I tried to, this is my first attempt here. And the school actually had all this carpet. Someone hoarded it and I took it and dyed it. So I got all that carpet that I still use for work today. I actually had, so I had some props and lighting and sound. It was a lot more of an immersive thing. And then in this series, I started kind of implicating more violence in the work with these gross hair stains. And so these were this was nicknamed Murder Carpet. So I have Murder Carpet and Little Pervs, which is really nice. Like that's what I have, I guess. But I used sliced beets, which is like my secret tool of the trade, and glue and hair, because I collect hair, which is pretty, that's pretty normal. And then dye, spray dye, or Rit dye in a spray bottle. So now I'm going to talk about current work. It's very different, as you can see, but so now this semester I made stuff like this and took out the figure, or the literal figure at least, and I am a lot more excited about this work. I'm getting the attitude that I've been looking for more through this materiality. It's a more kind of emotion-based rather than a literal narrative. And I'm making work that kind of surrounds you a little more, comes over top and underneath. For this piece, I use drop cloth, fabric, plastic, a vinyl, rain poncho, pleather, spray paint, Rit dye, acrylic paint, coffee, polyester stuffing, wire, plaster, glue. So I'm not limiting myself with material wise as much. Here's the Rit dye that I use. I used like layers of it built up, and then spray paint. And the dye I'm spraying through a spray bottle. So this is Corinthians 101. And my initial idea with this was just 101 Dalmatians, corn, and Bible verses. And this is what came out. And I had fun with canned corn that I dried and epoxied into the carpet. And everything I've sewed, I hand sewed. I haven't used a sewing machine yet. Maybe I will though, because it's hard. This is the largest piece I made last semester. So yeah, it's a lot more. I guess maybe this is what abstraction is. I never thought I'd do anything like that without like the literal figure or narrative. But I'm finding I can kind of use more emotion, like I said, and start with a more vague idea, not really know what I'm making from the beginning. And it's kind of nice to make work about other things and not just how I'm angry at like the patriarchy or whatever. So, and I'm still using text. You could probably see I use like really cryptic text in all of my work, but I'm still using that. It's even more kind of illegible and cryptic in this work, but in a more sculptural way. And then I'm going to end with this second version of the motel room installation I showed you before that me and my friend Inaz had a show over the spring. And so I was able to set this up again and control the lighting a little more. So that was fun. And finally, that's it. Thank you for being here tonight and listening. Bye.
Thank you, KJ. I am blown away by that new work. I mean, I just saw your studio not even 6 months ago, and maybe there was the seed of that in there, but holy cow.
Oh,
Would not,
thank you.
would not have thought it would morph into that. That is amazing.
Thank you.
Um, well, thank you for that. That was great. Next, we're going to hear from Laura, if she's ready.
Yes.
Hi, Laura.
How are you? All right. Can you see everything?
Yes.
Okay. So hello, I'm Laura de Valencia or Laura. I am an interdisciplinary artist, and my research focuses on the immigration experience with a particular interest in exploring the themes of labor, language, and fashion. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Barranquilla. It's a town on the Caribbean coast of Colombia. Initially, I pursued a degree in law and I finished, but in 2007, I made the decision to immigrate to Gainesville, Florida to reunite with my parents who had already moved here. Upon arriving in the United States, I realized that I wanted to pursue my childhood passion for art. So I enrolled in Santa Fe College and earned an associate's degree in graphic design. I was really worried about being independent and making money, so I went for the more practical route. And I was fortunate enough to receive a partial scholarship to attend the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I eventually obtained my bachelor's in fine arts. And so after spending 4 years, roughly 4 years working as an art director in New York City, I decided to return to Florida to start a family and further my education. I pursued an MFA at Florida State University and I graduated in 2021. And since then, I have had the opportunity to exhibit my artwork in various national and some international contemporary art spaces. For Fresh Squeezed, and particularly for this talk, I wanted to focus in my experience as a woman immigrant who is constantly negotiating through fashion how much to let go of her national identity in order to blend in American culture and how much to preserve in order to stand out. And I do find myself constantly negotiating my disjointed self through clothing. I see the act of getting dressed as a daily crossing of an imaginary border between conspicuousness and camouflaging. And I see this border, as all other borders, as made of an invisible line. And it's always malleable and it's highly surveilled. I have observed that the relationship between clothing and the immigrant goes beyond shallow displays of wealth or status, and what we choose to wear has everything to do with a constant construction of the self, a process of picking up and reconfiguring our mismatched pieces. Clothes are a recurrent theme in the pieces I display at the Fresh Squid exhibition. I see clothes and their visual language as a fertile space that allows me to disguise stories that no one wants to hear, and I am able to disguise these stories behind the beauty of colors and the exotic motifs that are fully embraced in popular culture, in fashion, in home decor, and the design industry. The main piece of my exhibition is an installation named Elevate, which is composed of a custom design pattern that I printed on wallpaper, the same pattern that I printed on a dress, and a painting of two Tohono O'odham women dressed under traditional clothes. The wallpaper design features a decorative pattern of Aztec inspiration that has been previously commercialized in the American market by other designers in a website called Spoonflower. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Spoonflower. And Spoonflowers is a site where artists upload their designs and anybody can order the designs to print them on a textile or home decor item. And Spoonflower just prints it for you and ships it to your house. In this image, you can see the Spoonflower website and with the original pattern that I work with. I was fascinated by the amount of Mexican-inspired textiles that were being sold under the worldly category in Spoonflower. It made me think of the amount of people that felt these beautiful colors and prints could elevate their homes, make them feel warm and cozy. And I wonder if they ever thought of the people that these prints represent, if they would be willing to let them in their homes as well as they let the pretty cushions and the curtains to decorate. So I decided to intervene the pattern by adding images of concrete obelisks known as border monuments, and they are found along the border of the United States and Mexico to demarcate the line separating both countries. They look like this. They're like this obelisk shape. I took the shape and I inserted on the design that I found on Spoonflower. The pattern ended up having the monuments hidden within the rest of the design motifs. I created a Spoonflower account, I uploaded the new design and made it available to the public. By juxtaposing the decorative pattern with the stark images of the border monuments, I aim to highlight the ways in which cultural exchange and political boundaries intersect and shape our understanding of identity and belonging. This work also comments on how foreign cultures are often reduced to an ornamental motif for commercial purposes, while their people are not seen as fully human by the law. This gesture speaks of how, while the Mexican indigenous traditional patterns and their bright colors and motifs and symbols are venerated in the fashion and design industry, the human whom the aesthetic represents is alienated and disenfranchised. Spaces such as the Mexican restaurant, the costumes shelves at Party City, the home decor section at Target, or the International Pavilion at Disney's Epcot Center are constant reminders of the Mexican seen as ornamental, as a cozy pattern to elevate domestic spaces, reduced to the exotic and bohemian. But where does humanity fit into these empty exchanges? Is the question I want to ask with these pieces. I took the same pattern and printed it on a textile through Spoonflower as well to make this outfit that resembles the one worn by the Tohono O'odham women of the painting that I showed you earlier. And I will speak more about it later. The outfit is a full skirt and a crop top set that I was constantly seeing in Vogue magazine around year 2021. The outfit was ubiquitous among Instagram influencers around 2020 as well. And coveted designers such as Dior, Mateo, and Zimmerman all had their own versions of this set, which were available on luxury retailers like Saks Fifth Avenue and online luxury retailer Moda Operandi. I was shocked to see the resemblance to the dress worn by Tohono O'odham women on this illustration I found while revising the documents related to the creation of the US-Mexico border. The Tohono O'odham were one of the original inhabitants of the territory divided by the border, extending south to Sonora, Mexico, north to central Arizona, just north of Phoenix, Arizona, and west to the Gulf of California. The Tohono Nation is still divided between Sonora in Mexico and Arizona in the United States. And today the Tohono Nation has to cross over between the border, which now it's being closed off by the wall. The illustration is of two Tohono O'odham women made by Arthur Scott in 1856. It's an illustration reflecting the white male gaze made as part of a land survey of the terrain where the border was being drawn. It was made back in the day for the Congress of the United States. So I took the pattern from the wallpaper and printed it on an outfit that resembles the one wearing by the Tohono O'odham women of the painting that is also part of the series, and the dress that I showed you previously. And this is the painting. I revisited the illustration and I repainted it, and I added a slogan on one of the women's shirt that reads status seeker, a term used in contemporary fashion to describe those who use luxury items to elevate their social status. The woman on the right wears a shirt with the term prêt-à-porter, which plays on the French term prêt-à-porter, ready to wear, and highlights the paradox of the Tohono O'odham people being forced to leave their ancestral lands due to the creation of an artificial border. The painting is also a response to how the fashion industry often addresses the immigration crisis within a logic of capital and profit by superficially limiting their efforts to slogan t-shirts or homages that scream cultural appropriation, or marketing and branding strategies, or just what I think are empty gestures without a plan or desire to change the status quo. I want to finish by saying that while I am not of Mexican origin or undocumented, I am a mestiza Latina woman who believes in art as a powerful platform from where I can create conversations around issues that affect undocumented immigrants, especially in Florida. My work I see as a call for empathy for immigrants who are dismissed as a burden while navigating unjust immigration policies and institutions that further marginalize them. Due to its proximity to the body, I use dress in my creative practice to call out immigration policies that dehumanize the immigrant. And I use the dress to highlight the role of passing in challenging notions of citizenship and to denounce performative activism that distracts from the root of the issues affecting undocumented immigrants in the United States. I want to thank you for listening, and especially for being part of this conversation.
Thank you, Laura. I'm amazed. Oh, and this is when I should say, please write your questions in the chat if you have any for any of the three artists or all of the artists. I'm just reminded, even though I've been working with you all for a while and we've had your work in the gallery for a couple of months now, just hearing each of you speak is really powerful. You guys have such different messages, although there's some commonalities there as well, which is interesting. But just how powerful the work is. And again, I will say that if any of you are watching, I would encourage you to come see the work in person. There's no substitute for that. So please write any questions that you have in the chat. And while people are doing that, I figure that'll take a minute. I had a couple of quick questions. Deborah, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but did you ever consider at all going into architecture?
No, but for some reason it has had such a huge impact on me, and I'm not sure why. I was married to an architect once,
No.
so that might have something to do with it, but it has just played a big role in what I see.
Yeah, we have obviously many people coming through the galleries on a daily basis, and I get to hear people's comments sometimes when I'm in there. And I've heard several people who I know for a fact are either architects or they maybe studied that and really particularly love your work and have asked if you're an architect or if you studied architecture. And I'm like, maybe you could have studied it and I wasn't aware, but anyway, there's definitely that. You have an architect fan base for sure here anyway. And right, let me go to the chat. Debbie has a question for Deborah and KJ. Do you have a concept in mind when you find your inspiration for your work? Or do you find yourself stumbling on scenes or images that you decide to use as the basis for your creations?
Well, for me, I find that if I might have an idea in mind, but I kind of try not to formulate it too specifically. I try to let the work or the idea lead me. The more I do that, the better the work is.
So part of this conceptual part, so my processes keep changing, which is probably why my art has changed so much. I was really unhappy with kind of deciding a concept beforehand. I think I was trying to say something with a lot of my 2D paintings before actually like making it, like having the idea too solidified in my mind at the beginning. And what has helped me in my newer work is like having a very vague concept that I am very interested in it, and I think about it throughout it, but it's more, I allow for it to develop more, kind of like what you were saying, Deborah. Like I've been allowing for it to change this now, and it's cool. I like that.
And kind of related to that, Laura asks you, KJ, about how you're managing the transition from more figurative to abstract and cryptic work.
How she's managed.
The transition
Yes.
from more figurative to abstract.
Well,
how are you managing it?
That's a good question.
I just know that when you start your MFA,
Yes.
it's like an explosion. You know, you're getting all these comments at the same time, and I just want to know how you personally got there and how you're managing all that. You know, all the advice.
Definitely. Well, I don't know if you probably were in a 3-year program too. So like I'm in a 3-year so there's like all this is a lot of time for me. So
Yes.
because of that, I think I've allowed myself to change things more. I was getting a lot of questions about like, who is this girl? Like, what does she mean to you? And I couldn't really answer them. And I always thought I was really interested in figurative work just because I always drew people. And I think I was trying to make a statement about this body. And it felt limited. It felt like there were a lot of like holes and like cracks in just like kind of saying this about one body. It's limited. It's just this like white girl that's this one age. And I've it just wasn't I don't think my concepts were like being carried out through the body the way that I wanted, or at least that's the feedback I was getting. And also I kind of felt it deep down. And so I didn't really mean to not use the figure. I just kind of stopped drawing. Yeah.
It was an accident.
Yeah.
The next question for Deborah, and I was actually thinking about this too, from Jesse. I think your work moved from very abstract to something less abstract and more of a commentary on social justice. Do you feel it's a natural evolution, or that the social political situation in the world today makes it impossible not to comment?
Well, to be honest, I was almost afraid to express myself and my disgust and my personal feelings. And then something clicked and I said, you know, honor your feelings, honor your voice. And this is where the real work starts to come out. And I think the work is better for that. I was afraid almost to say what I really felt, and then I just let it go. I let it go and express my feelings, and I think the work is stronger. And I'm just I'm just doing it. I'm not afraid anymore. And so that's what happened.
There's definitely sort of a fearlessness, I would say, about all three of you. And again, when I was grouping the three artists and the two different talks that we did, I wasn't really thinking about commonalities or anything, but that's the theme that's coming out to me tonight. Leslie asked KJ if she's been to the factory in St. Pete. She thinks your work would do well there. Have you been there, KJ?
Hello, Leslie. I have not been there yet, but I've heard of it and I'm excited to see it.
You should go. It's very immersive,
Oh yeah,
experience-y, so.
cool. Very cool. Okay.
Kath asks Laura if you've considered sales of your dresses for profit, which is an interesting question.
No, I see my work in fashion, not just my, the work, the material work and the research as circumscribed in the art space to generate these kind of conversations. But I think once the art industry is something else and it wouldn't allow me to generate these conversations because it has a different logic. It has a logic of profit. And so when the logic of profit is there, then your message, you can't be as fearless. And that's part of the reason why I stopped. I was fortunate enough to leave the corporate graphic design world, because that's what I was doing before, because you're not allowed to have a voice. You have to produce work for a client. And so art gave me the freedom to speak about all these subjects free of, an audience. Well, I do think about my audience, but in a different way. So the answer is no, because I think that would kind of limit me. And I prefer to speak from the space and the platform that art offers.
And Laura Leslie says you might want to look up Noelle Mason and her art. Noelle, I think she teaches at USF, but immigration is a big theme. Of
I will definitely look her up. Thank you. Noelle Mason.
Noelle Mason. KJ, I wanted to ask you, we had one of the sponsors came in and this afternoon, and I was giving them a tour, and they were looking at your work and they were thrilled with the show. But they were looking at your piece. I thought I wrote down the title, but now I can't find it. But it has some dates. Oh, surveillance.
Oh yeah, the one with the dates on it.
And there's some dates, and they wanted to know what the significance of those dates were. And there was even a random guy in the gallery at the same time, and he was punching in the numbers to see if something came up.
Oh, well, that
I would ask you.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. It's not like a specific date referencing a specific event, but that would be really cool if it was. And it was like some kind of conspiracy. That I wish I did something like that. It's just part of like a narrative of just kind of trying to find different ways to think about not just like the male gaze, but the gaze in general through like recorded surveillance in that one. And I just made up some dates,
Random,
like a narrative. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, he didn't find anything, so that makes sense. So, anybody else? Lots of nice comments in the chat. Thank you all. And again, I'm just amazed. This is an emerging artist show, which, there's a full range of emerging artists. There's artists who've never shown in any gallery before. And there's artists who might have been successful in another part of the country and they're new to Florida. So they know what they're doing. They just don't know Florida very well. And so there's kind of the whole spectrum. But everyone in this show just really has blown me away. We're so lucky to be able to have your work in the gallery now. Anyway, and it just, I think about that all the time. And then just hearing you guys speak and me learning even more than I thought I knew about your work is just a real treat for me personally, and I'm sure for anybody who's watching. And just so you all know, in case you're watching and you're like, oh, I have a friend that I wish they had seen this. Maureen does have a YouTube channel, and we will have this video loaded up there probably midweek next week. It will be up there. And if you're interested, so there's 6 artists in the show, and the other 3 artists spoke last month. And that talk is up on our YouTube page now, if you would like to go see that. And if there's no other questions, thank you for all your nice comments. And again, thank you to the 3 of you for spending the time, make the work, to let us show it, and to be just so great to work with, and for taking the time to talk to us tonight. I appreciate you all so much. And for everyone who joined us, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much.
you.
And thank you, Laura and Deborah, too. So good to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, everyone.